Legal aspects of buying a pre-owned home, protecting your investment. Let me tell you about Sarah. She found her dream apartment in Jerusalem. Beautiful, well-priced, perfect location. She was so excited that she signed the purchase agreement the same day, without a lawyer reviewing it. After all, the seller seemed honest. The agent assured her everything was standard, and she didn't want to waste time and lose the property. 3 months later, she discovered the apartment had an unregistered renovation that violated building codes. The seller had enclosed a balcony without permits. The municipality issued a violation notice. Sarah's options: pay 80,000 shekels to bring it into compliance, face ongoing fines, or demolish the unpermitted work, losing both money and living space she'd paid for. Her lawyer, whom she finally hired after the problem surfaced, delivered the bad news. This would have been caught in a proper legal review before purchase. The seller should have disclosed this, but you signed away your rights when you accepted the property as is, without proper legal due diligence. Sarah's story isn't unusual. Israeli real estate law is complex. Transactions involve significant legal documentation, and the consequences of legal mistakes can be financially catastrophic. Yet too many buyers treat legal aspects as bureaucratic nuisances rather than essential protections. Today, I'm walking you through the complete legal landscape of buying pre-owned property in Israel, from the first offer through final registration. This isn't exciting stuff. It won't give you the thrill of finding the perfect apartment or negotiating a great price, but it will protect you from disasters that can turn your dream purchase into a nightmare. Before we get into specific legal issues, let's address the fundamental question: do you really need a lawyer for a real estate transaction? The short answer: absolutely yes. Not negotiable. Full stop. Israeli property law involves multiple legal systems: Ottoman, British Mandate, and Israeli. It includes complex registration processes through the taboo system, unclear ownership histories in many properties, building and planning law complications, tax law implications, and contract law specifics unique to real estate. No layperson can navigate this competently, no matter how smart or educated. You're making a multi-million shekel transaction. A lawyer costs 10,000 to 20,000 shekels typically. That's roughly 0.5% of your purchase price. The legal problems they prevent can easily cost 10 to 20 times their fee. Spending 15,000 shekels to avoid a potential 300,000 shekel legal disaster is one of the best investments you'll ever make. Real estate agents, even excellent, well-intentioned ones, are not legal advisors. The seller has a lawyer protecting their interests. If you don't have one protecting yours, you're in an adversarial legal situation without representation. That's like going to court without a lawyer because the other side seems nice. Let me give you a real cost example. David thought he'd save money by not hiring a lawyer. He signed the seller's contract as presented. Issues discovered after closing. The property had an undisclosed mortgage lien worth 120,000 shekels. Renovation was done without permits, requiring 80,000 shekels in remediation. There was a boundary dispute with a neighbor, and the seller hadn't paid property tax for 2 years. 40,000 shekels in arrears and penalties. Total, 240,000 shekels in issues plus years of legal battles and stress. A lawyer would have cost him 15,000 shekels and caught all of these issues before closing. The saving cost him 225,000 shekels plus immeasurable stress. Don't be David. Hire a lawyer. When choosing a real estate lawyer, look for specialization in real estate. Someone who focuses primarily on real estate transactions and ideally deals mostly with residential property. You want someone who regularly handles transactions in the area where you're buying and is up to date on current law and regulations. If you don't speak Hebrew fluently, you need a lawyer who speaks your language. Not just basic conversation, but legal precision in your language. They should be able to explain complex legal concepts clearly. Communication style matters, responsive to emails and calls, explains things in understandable terms, doesn't dismiss your questions or concerns. Standard costs for residential transactions range from 10,000 to 25,000 shekels depending on the city and complexity. In Tel Aviv, expect 15,000 to 25,000 shekels. In Jerusalem, 12,000 to 20,000 shekels. Other cities typically 10,000 to 18,000 shekels. Complex transactions can cost 20,000 to 40,000 shekels or more. Get the fee structure in writing before engaging the lawyer. Several legal documents will govern your real estate transaction. The most important is the purchase agreement, called Heskem Rechisha. This is the primary contract between you and the seller. It's legally binding and governs the entire transaction. The purchase agreement must include full legal names and ID numbers of buyers and sellers, exact property description including tabu registration details with Gush and Helka numbers, the complete purchase price and payment terms, possession date and conditions, what's included with the property, seller's representations and warranties, any conditions and contingencies, default provisions and remedies, and closing details. Watch out for critical clauses. As is, clauses limit the buyer's ability to claim defects after closing. You want these as narrow as possible, with exceptions for hidden defects the seller knew about, structural or safety issues, legal compliance issues, and building code violations. Time is of the essence means deadlines are strict. Missing a deadline could void the contract or cost you your deposit. Make sure liquidated damages are reasonable and clearly stated. If you default, this specifies what you lose, usually your deposit. Red flags in purchase agreements include vague property descriptions, no clear payment schedule, unreasonable penalties for buyer default, with minimal penalties for seller default, extremely short contingency periods, broad as-is language without exceptions, or situations where the seller isn't the registered owner without proper explanation. Your lawyer should review the purchase agreement before you sign and negotiate problematic clauses. Your lawyer must conduct comprehensive due diligence before you close. For title verification, they'll perform a taboo search to verify the seller is the registered owner, check for liens, mortgages, or encumbrances, verify property boundaries and dimensions, check for restrictions or easements, and verify all co-owners if applicable. This answers whether the seller actually owns what they're selling and whether there are any legal claims against the property. They'll verify building and planning compliance. Was the building constructed legally? Were all renovations done with proper permits? Are there any open violations or enforcement actions? And does the current use match the permitted use? Red flags include unpermitted renovations or additions, building violations or enforcement notices, illegal changes to building structure, or commercial use in residential zones. Financial liability checks are crucial. Your lawyer will verify that all property taxes, building fees, and utility bills are current. They'll check for any arrears, penalties, or pending major expenses. They'll also check for municipality debts, improvement taxes, special assessments, or outstanding fines. You don't want to inherit the seller's debts. Your purchase payments should never go directly to the seller. They should be held in escrow in your lawyer's trust account until closing conditions are met. If you pay the seller directly and the deal falls through, getting your money back can be extremely difficult or impossible. The standard structure is a deposit of typically 10% paid at signing, held in the lawyer's trust account, and released to seller only at closing when all conditions are met. Title transfers properly, all documents are signed, and taboo registration begins. The contract must include seller's representations and warranties. The seller should represent and warrant that they are the legal owner with right to sell. Property is free from liens and encumbrances, or disclosed liens will be paid off at closing. All taxes and fees are current. Property complies with building codes and zoning. All permits were obtained for construction and renovations. There are no pending legal actions affecting the property, and all information provided is true and accurate. These representations should survive closing, meaning you can still claim breach even after taking possession if you discover the seller lied. Real estate transactions in Israel involve several taxes. Purchase tax, or mas rechisha, is a one-time tax paid by the buyer using a progressive rate system. For first-time buyers meeting certain conditions, there's 0% on the first roughly 1.8 million shekels, then 3.5% on the next portion, 5% on the next portion, 8% on amounts above 5.49 million, and 10% for investment properties. Your lawyer should calculate the exact purchase tax owed, ensure you're getting all applicable benefits and reductions, and file purchase tax forms correctly and timely. Wrong calculation or late filing can cost thousands in unnecessary taxes or penalties. You must also withhold a portion of the purchase price, typically 5% for Israeli residents, higher for non-residents, and pay it directly to the tax authority as a guarantee for the seller's capital gains tax. This is called mas nihul. The seller must provide a release from the tax authority showing their capital gains tax is settled. Only then do you release the withholding. The entire closing process typically takes 60 to 120 days from accepted offer to registered ownership. It starts with offer and acceptance, then contract drafting and negotiation. Don't rush this. 2 weeks to negotiate properly is normal and important. Then comes the due diligence phase with title searches, building permit checks, financial verification, engineering inspection, and mortgage application. Mortgage approval typically takes 30 to 60 days. Then there's a pre-closing phase where all conditions are satisfied and documents are prepared, followed by the actual closing where documents are signed and money transfers, and finally post-closing where taboo registration is completed, which can take weeks to months. Let me share some common legal problems and how to avoid them. Sometimes sellers don't actually own the property. This happens with inheritance properties not yet divided, properties owned by partnerships or companies, or properties in divorce proceedings. Avoid this with a thorough taboo search before signing anything and verify all registered owners sign the contract. Undisclosed renovations or violations are common. The seller made changes without permits, creating municipal violations, requirements to remove or legalize work, and future liability for the buyer. Your engineering inspection catches physical issues, but your lawyer checks building permits against the actual property and ensures specific warranties in the contract about building compliance. Financial lines and obligations, unpaid property taxes, building fees, utility bills, municipality improvement taxes, must be verified by your lawyer before closing. Obtain clearance certificates from all relevant authorities and hold back from the purchase price to cover any discovered arrears. Sellers must provide written confirmation all obligations are paid. Israeli law provides certain protections to property buyers. Sellers must provide accurate information about the property. Deliberate misrepresentation or concealment of material facts can void the contract, entitle you to damages, or result in criminal liability for the seller. Even if you accepted the property as is, you generally retain rights to claim for hidden structural defects seller knew about but didn't disclose, and building code violations creating safety issues. The limitation period is typically 7 years for structural defects, shorter for other issues. Let me end with a different story. Michael and Tal were buying an apartment in Haifa. They hired a thorough real estate lawyer for 16,000 shekels. During due diligence, the lawyer discovered a boundary dispute with a neighbor that would have cost over 100,000 shekels to resolve, an unpermitted balcony enclosure requiring 80,000 shekels to fix, a parking space that wasn't actually legally assigned to the unit worth 150,000 shekels, and 35,000 shekels in unpaid property tax arrears. The lawyer negotiated. The seller resolved the boundary dispute before closing, gave a 100,000 shekel price reduction for the unpermitted work, got proper parking assignment documented and registered, and paid all property tax arrears current before closing. Result: the 16,000 shekel legal fee saved Michael and Tal at least 300,000 shekels in problems and costs, plus immeasurable stress and hassle. That's the value of proper legal representation. Israeli real estate law is complex. Transactions involve significant legal exposure, and the consequences of legal mistakes can be catastrophic. You're making one of the largest financial commitments of your life. Protecting it legally isn't optional, it's essential. Hire a good lawyer. Let them do comprehensive due diligence. Listen to their advice. Don't skip steps to save time or money. Make sure every document is reviewed, every search is conducted, every protection is in place. The legal work isn't the exciting part of buying property, but it's the part that ensures your excitement doesn't turn to regret. Your dream home deserves proper legal protection. Give it that protection.